Welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Mean.
And I was just thinking, this is really challenging stuff, this particular parsha, and I'm so not good at visualizing things based on verbal descriptions. Some people are just gifted with that, I know. And so it's really interesting. So to whatever extent, what I'm thinking is, whatever extent Jews are in the rag trade, my gosh, this is, here it is in the Torah.
My dad was in the rag trade.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, let's go to a share, and we'll pick up with the text. All right. So apparently we were just finishing up just the last little Rashi here on verse 24. So this is Mimul Panav. So it was a little difficult to, even without my typing stuff in this Hebrew here. So I realized it was Mimul Panav means opposite its face or his face, but Ever Hachitzon, which means on the outside. And we were talking, let's take a look quickly at the pictures. Let's see if we can see anything there that makes sense. So let's look at this. So I believe we were talking about these threads. Okay, so this would be, of course, on the inside, right? This flap gets folded back and makes a pocket of the breastplate. So this for sure these rings would be on the inside. So this was a little confusing. Oh, that's nice. See here. This is isn't that pixelated either, which is pretty amazing, right? This was described earlier on. Yeah. So these are on the outside. These rings here are at the edge on the outside. So, okay, well, just whatever it was, we need to go back. Let's go back to a different share. We'll go back to the text and go to the next verse. So, and I just want check to see if you're muted. I think someone is unmuted there. All right, so here we go. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm going to do another share here. Golda funny. Golda's chatted and said, too bad they didn't have Velcro. Ha ha ha. Okay. Give me a second. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to go to this particular picture. Give me 1 second. And this way we can look and see. Let's take a look at this. And so this is where these rings were, and these blue ribbons that went around and then tied in the front here, and that they sit right on, right above the cheshev. Remember, the cheshev is this belt on the ephod, and I'll give you another picture to show you that. See, I'm assuming you can see that. Okay. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Forgive me. Okay, so I'm assuming that there might have been rings there too, unless it was actually attached. But this is the cheshev right there. You can see. All right, let's go back into this again. I'm just so grateful to have these books, this book that had these illustrations. Okay, so Vayir Chesu, okay, yeah. Right, Mimala Cheshev Haifod. That's the last little part there. So above the cheshev of the ephod, right? Vayir Chesu et hachoshen mita'abotav, and they shall fasten. This is not a common word here, but it's Rashi will give you some other examples. But it means to fasten, to connect it, right? To connect to the choshen, the breastplate, mitabotav, from its rings, or el tabaot ha'ephod, to the rings of the ephod. So I would have to think that even though we couldn't see those rings where the ribbon came out, there were ribbons there. Biftil tchelet, there we go, with a tchelet, either a purple or a blue ribbon. Liyot al cheshev ha'afod, to be on the belt part, the cheshev, we'll just call it the cheshev of the ephod. The lo yizach ha'choshen, so that the breastplate does not move. Again, this is a little bit of an unusual word here, but basically, this much I can visualize is that it's preventing the breastplate from moving back and forth, me'al ha'ephod, so that it will not move from above the ephod itself. And we'll take a look at the Rashi. Okay. So, did we do this? Do you remember? Maybe we did. Maybe we did. We did Kaf Zayin. So, yeah, but that's Kaf Chet. Sorry, we did do Kaf Zayin. All right, here we are. Kaf Chet. Here we are. Vayir Chasu. There we are. Lashon Chibur. It has the meaning of connection, attachment. The word for friend in Hebrew is chaver. Definitely, right? Completely associated with this root, to be attached. So a chaver, a friend, is someone one is attached to, certainly emotionally. V'chein, and he gives other examples because, as I said, this vayir chasu is an unusual word, but he gives an example from Tehillim, from Psalm 31, meruchse ish. Okay, so that's the again an unusual language here, difficult language, and he says chabure chevle rishaim, right? In other words, an association with bands of the wicked, right? So meruchse ish, referring in that verse, referring to preventing a person from associating with bands of wicked people. V'chein, and likewise, Isaiah 44, beautiful passage there. V'harechasim livika. And there's that word, rechasim. We say yirchasu, that you can see that root there. And here it's referring to, so it's saying, and the mountain chains into a plain. I believe it's that beautiful passage that opens up and talks about how God's presence, Isaiah is so inspired with the idea of God, being present amongst human beings, and that people sense the divine presence. So he explains, Harim hasmuchim zelazeh. So the rechasim refer to mountains that are connected one to the other. In other words, a mountain chain, right? She'ifshar lered lagai, where it becomes impossible to go down into the valley, shebeinehem, between these chains of mountains. Ela bekoshi gadol, only with great difficulty. Shemitoch smichatam, because on account of their being connected one to another, Hagai zakufa, the valley goes straight down. It goes straight up and down. For amuka, and it's also deep. You levikat meshor, and those will become a level plain. V'nocha lelech, and easy to go to. And the idea is that these days, Isaiah is comparing, well, in Isaiah's time, I believe he was speaking to the Jewish people who had experienced exile, the Babylonian exile. And he was predicting the fact that exile was going to come to an end, and that the presence of God was going to break forth into human behavior and human life, and people would be able to experience the divine. And so he's talking about barriers to experiencing the divine, that those barriers would break down and people would be able to experience the divine presence. And of course, Isaiah is such an incredibly gifted poet, and he uses metaphors that are just so powerful and just moving. If you read Isaiah, if you want to read Isaiah 44, excuse me, chapter 44. Liot al cheshev ha'ephod, so as to be over or on the cheshev, that belt of the ephod. And again, he explains, Liot ha'choshen davuk el cheshev ha'ephod. So what it means, Rashi is just giving us a little more precise sense of what's going on here. And that is so that it is stuck literally to the cheshev, this belt of the ephod. Velo yizach, right? And again, he knows this word is not an easy word. Rashi knows this, right? So he says, Lashon nituk, that when this word yizach has the meaning of breaking away. Lashon aravihi, and it actually is an Arabic word, a word from Arabic, kedivrei, and here he refers, he makes these references, Dunash ben Lavrat. So one of his teachers possibly was this person by the name of Dunash ben Lavrat. And I believe we have some Zmirot and Yutim that are attributed to this particular person. Excuse me. So going on. V'nasa Aharon, sure I've got the right place here. V'nasa Aharon et shmot b'nei Yisrael v'choshen hamishpat. And Aaron shall carry the names of the children of Israel in the breastplate of judgment, al libo, on his heart, right? Because that's where the breastplate was. Bevo'o el HaKodesh, when he comes into the holy place, the sanctuary. Lezichron, as a remembrance, lifnei Hashem tamid, before the Lord always. Now, this is a very powerful sentence here that lends itself to some contemplation here as to the significance of what the Torah is saying here. So one is the idea of choshen mishpat, and before I get into the Rashi, right, the breastplate of judgment, and the idea of mishpat has to do with justice and careful, and that justice is so important. And when we talk about Eloheinu, when we refer to God as Eloheinu, the traditional understanding of that is that we're willing to accept God as our judge. And you may have heard me share that with you before. So this idea of justice and how important, there's a statement that says, I think tzedek umishpat mechon kiso, it's one of the Kabbalat Shabbat Psalms, which means righteousness and justice are the foundations of his throne, of God's throne, meaning God's authority as, I believe, God's authority as the divine sovereign of the universe. So just such important thoughts to have as part of who we are as human beings and our relationship to the universe. Let's go into the Rashi here. If there is, let's see. So I'm not seeing that. This is Lamed. So apparently the Rashi does not feel there's a necessity to comment on that, at least in terms of what Rashi is trying to accomplish. V'natata el choshen hamishpat, and you shall place into the breastplate of judgment et ha'urim ve'et ha'tumim, the urim and the tumim, right? And this was this way of, it was an oracle. That's what we'd call these. So were they stones? Were they referring actually to the stones that were on those precious and semi-precious stones that were on the breastplate that we already talked about? But at any rate, Rashi's going to explain what this is. Or were they separate separate stones that were placed in this pocket that the breastplate was made into. V'hayu al, and they shall be on Lev Aaron, on Aaron's heart, b'vo'or lifnei Hashem, when he comes into before Hashem. V'nasa Aaron, again carrying, right? And Aaron shall bear et mishpat b'nei Yisrael, the judgment of the children of Israel, al libo, on his heart. Notice how many times we're talking about Aaron's heart. Lifnei Hashem tamid, before God, always. Does this have to do with a very important principle of accountability, right? And that accountability, by the way, also implies that our lives have meaning, right? That they have to be accounted for, that they have, my fun word these days, significance, right? That's so important for us to understand that our lives have deep significance, each one of us as individuals. And this is one of the ways in which our lives play out in a significant kind of way. All right, so here he's going to talk about it. Et ha'urim ve'et ha'tumim. So he said he's going to show that the urim clearly comes from some root like or, which means light. Tum, tameh, is perfect, right? Hu katav Shem. So he says this is something with the name of God written on it, katav, right? Shem meforash, the explicit divine name, meaning God's name spelled out completely. Shehaya netano betoch kiflei hachoshen, which he would place into the fold of the breastplate. She'al yado, by means of which, hu me'ir dvarav, he illuminates, right, his words, umitamem et dvarav, and clarifies his words. So because this is an oracle, right, the oracle is an instrument by means of which you can get messages from God, right? You can get divine messages. And so that's what this was about, right? Interesting thought. And then it's a citation from the Talmud Yoma, looks like page 73. Uve mikdash sheni, he says, and in the second temple, this is the one that was built after the first exile, haya hachoshen, okay, now, okay, the breastplate, and this looks like, okay, there was a breastplate. That's what he's saying. There was a breastplate, she'ivshar lakohen gadol liyot mechusar begadim, because it was impossible for a kohen gadol to serve with some lack of his uniform, of his clothing. In other words, all these particular items of the Kohen Gadol's, his clothing, he had to wear them all when he was ministering in the temple as a Kohen Gadol. Not allowed. So the point, okay, so he says, we're going to go on with the sentence. So Rashi says, yes, there was a choshen, there was a breastplate, aval oto Hashem lo haya betucho. However, this name, this explicit name of God, was not within this choshen. It didn't do that. So there were certain things that were limitations in the second temple, and this would have been one of the limitations. V'al shem oto haktav, and by means of this particular script, hu karui mishpat, it is also called judgment. Excuse me for a second. We find it, Shene'emar, as it states, and he's going to explain a little bit better why it's called Choshen Mishpat, V'sha'al lo b'mishpat ha'urim. So this is I believe, I'd have to go actually to Numbers 27. If Golda, sometimes you look up references, but it's sounding like, if there was going to be a case that was too difficult to judge, that they could somehow decide. Now, we're going to see. He's going to
What am
explain.
I looking up? I'm sorry.
You don't have to write the second. I was wondering the context of chapter 27 in the book of Numbers, but you
Okay.
don't look it up right the second. Just let's keep
Okay,
going.
but I
Okay.
will have it for after. Okay.
Okay, right. Because you're going to see, Rashi's going to explain what kinds of judgments. Et mishpat b'nei Israel, right? The judgment regarding the children of Israel. And here he goes. Davar shehein nishpaim, okay, nishpatim v'nochachim. A matter in which they would be judged, v'nochachim, and admonished, in other words, forewarned, al yado, by means of it. And here we go. Im la'asot davar or lo la'asot. So in other words, I'll give you a specific example, whether to wage war against a certain nation, they would consult with the Urim and Tumim to find out if that was something they should do. All right? But there might be other national, if I can use an anachronism, okay, but there might be something which the people as a people needed a decision as to whether to do it or not to do it. This is where they would consult the Urim and the Tumim. So if you want to check Numbers 27, whether it has to do with a consultation in that context, that would be interesting. Do you want me to wait a second, Golda, or you just chime in whenever, or just raise your hand and I will acknowledge you, okay?
Boop, boop. I don't see. I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute quickly. And it starts with Zelifed.
Slavfad, yeah. Okay.
Slavfad, wherever you put the accent.
Okay.
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 And that's not in that. And then there's a wilderness of Zin.
Okay. Let me check.
And,
okay. Let's finish this up.
Yeah.
Finish up this.
That might be wrong. So.
And it might be a mistaken reference. I will check Safaria. Okay. Just as soon as let's get this sentence done, and then I will take the time to check Safaria. Et mishpat ne Israel, right? The judgment regarding the children of Israel. So we did this. Ulefi midrash agada, and according to the midrash, shehachoshen nechaper. Look at this. Remember, I said that every garment of the high priest represents an atonement for a specific kind of sin, right? He says the choshen mechaper, that the breastplate atones al me'avtei hadin. Okay, it atones when justice is perverted. Nikra mishpat, and it is called mishpat. Okay, and it's called the breastplate of judgment, al shem slichat mishpat, regarding the atonement for justice, where there might be a miscarriage of justice. So what the thought is here is that if there were a miscarriage of justice and they discovered that, they may have to bring offerings and things like that, but there's a certain additional level of atonement that this garment represents. And I think this is a great place for us to stop for today.
I did find it.
Okay.
It's in verse 21.
Yes.
But he shall present himself to Eleazar the priest, who shall on his behalf seek the decision of the Urim before the Lord. So it's having to do with the.
Is it a general statement?
It's like what'll happen if you single out Joshua of Nun, an inspired man, and lay your hand upon him, have him stand before Eleazar. Yeah, it's like it's kind of general.
Okay, that's I wanted to know. Yes, and it wasn't specific. Okay, so basically, it's saying if it's something that can't be judged through human, through the normal process that
Right.
they have this.
So the community may not be like sheep and have no shepherd.
Okay.
That
So
comes up ahead of it.
it's a
right.
means of divine communication. I'm going to
So,
stop
yes.
here.
Oops.
Thank you. All right. Unless somebody wants to add something at this point, I will stop the recording.
I think that if they can't judge something, the officers can't judge something, the judges can't judge something, and it's real hard to judge that that the priest will call on God to judge it. And that's what that woman that those two things are on the
Sure.
here,
The cat's helping.
All right. Let me.
I can't pronounce those two things.
Urim and Tumim.
Umir and what? Umir?
Urim.
Okay.
He just called it Urim. Just made it easier on everybody in the
Okay.